I came to believe it by experience. In the book, I make a reference to 2004. That was a huge year for me. I had been 7 years in my Christian experience at that particular point in time, and I was dealing with a lot in the corporate world, a lot in the family that was going on, and just trying to grow up as a man, and it was tough and rough. And actually, a friend of mine asked me to listen to a series that was done by a minister on the subject of love, and I agreed to listen to it, and I did. It was a 5 CD set. I listened to one every day, and it was just really like drinking from a fire hydrant. And then at the end of that process, the last CD, I'm digesting that, processing all of that, and then it was the next morning that I realized that God had flipped that switch to really understand love in a deeper way. And I knew that that was the case because at that time I was going through great friction with a couple of people, and immediately I could actually see them from the standpoint of their hurts and their pains as opposed to what they were saying and doing. And that was a huge switch. And then as I continued to just have the experience, then I really began to see myself from God's image. I had never seen myself. It had always been, okay, here's me down here, and I'm trying to do the right things. And I think of myself from the standpoint of my failures and my inconsistencies. But then I realized that that's not how God saw me, and I did it from experience. What happened was immediately I began to recognize that I was dearly beloved by God in a way that went beyond what I had ever conceived of. And once I really understood in a way that was practical for me that God really did love me, then it took a lot of pressure off of me. Receiving that love, recognizing, being able to see and recognize that He wasn't looking to ping me for things that I was doing wrong or to punish me or make me deal with harsh consequences, but rather that it was more like a father that was training a son that loves a son, and that was giving me the grace to be the person that I was, recognizing the fact that I was doing the best that I could do. It was like His way of saying, my son, why don't you come up to my level? Let me help you understand that my future for you, my thoughts, my intentions towards you are good. And that was a welcome relief. I was in the corporate world at the time, and there was a good amount of pressure with performance and all kinds of things. And so just recognizing that God loved me and that He saw me in a different way that I saw myself, it was freeing. And then as I began to pray and read Scripture, I was able to see it even from a different perspective. It was like I got new lenses, and I could see life, and I could see others, and I could see myself in a completely different way. That was a game changer. We live in a world, particularly in American society, where skill is almost idolized, and skill is necessary to do anything well. However, skill is more about what you do. It's not really who you are. A person becomes the sum of their thoughts, their words, and their actions. And at the end of the day, every person is going to be known by what they do. Their reputation and legacy is going to be determined by what people come to expect of them based on what they say and what they do. And that is the thing that is so important. And if you're going to really have a good legacy, if you're going to have a good impact, if you're going to use your influence well in life, you have to be a person whose character is consistent, and character has to be positive. It has to be based on a desire to build principles of building others and not looking for benefits for yourself. The first commitment that a person has to make is to be a person of integrity and great character. At the end of the day, if a person is not a person of integrity, nobody can really trust them. And if you can't gain the trust of the people that you are working with, the people you're supposed to be serving, that's a problem, because people have to be able to trust you. And then when you do have the trust of people, then it is your responsibility, if the goal is to do things in the right way, if it's to create a positive legacy, if it's to have a great impact, then there has to be a commitment to working for the benefit of others. There has to be a character that says, I am going to do the things that are right because they're foundational, because the consequences that are going to come from what I'm doing are going to be positive, sustaining, and beneficial. And if a person doesn't have that, then that is a problem. I think, quite honestly, at this particular point in time in history, we are seeing the reality of that played out every day in this nation, not just from the standpoint of our current administration, but also in the business environment. We live in a time where service and words don't mean what they used to mean. We live in a place where a lot of the leadership directives and a lot of the policies are really, they are designed to benefit individuals and organizations more than they are the public that they're supposed to serve. And as a result of that, there's a lack of trust. And that lack of trust is growing as we go down the road of this decade. And that's because of a lack of integrity and character. The second one is a commitment to serve. When a person has made a commitment to serve others, then they're setting themselves up to be effective leaders. I have been in and around leadership a lot in my life. I'm a business management major. I started young. I was in programs from the time I was in high school, vocational office education, and being around a lot of leadership platforms, and certainly in all of the community work that I've done and the churches I've attended. And what's really interesting is this: I have never found a person to be very effective with people that was not a person that learned to serve well. Every effective leader I have ever known or been around personally is a person who's been dedicated to serving others at their own expense. Serving others is where true power comes from, where people are concerned. Because when you really serve the interest of others, when your life is about giving others the advantage and building and cultivating and developing others instead of trying to manage others, then you're putting yourself in a place where you will have an impact on people that will become leaders, people who are people of influence, and that commitment must be in place in order for that to happen. The third commitment I speak of in the book is growth and development as a life learner. And I think the most powerful example of that is what I stated in the book. There was a very exceptional individual that was known, very well known nationally, that I had the opportunity a number of years ago to be a part of this person's life for a season, and it was very interesting. I learned a great deal from this individual, but that was the place where I really began to understand the importance of really being a life learner. This person, as we continue to go down the road, kind of made his world comfortable and surrounded himself with people that would tell him what he wanted to hear, and really stopped climbing the ladder in terms of gaining more insight into the area of expertise that he had, and the impact began to diminish. The reality of it is that as African Americans, what we have to understand is that every day you wake up, if you are living, there is an opportunity for growth and development and to have an impact. The idea of just retiring at a certain point in time, or making it to the top of the mountain and kicking back and relaxing and having a good time, I'm not sure where that came from, But I can tell you this, that for people that do that, they are leaving a lot on the table. Life is not about reaching the pinnacle of success in a career field and then kicking back and doing nothing. We live in a world that is challenged every day with the forces of good and evil. And the more you learn, the more you grow, the more you develop, you should be looking to have a greater impact in life, not only for yourself, but for the people that you represent, the people you're connected to. That should always be a value that is in place. And I think we have lost, not just as African Americans and Black people, but I think just in American society, that is a value system that has been greatly diminished over the last number of years. Number 4 is a commitment to be excellent in all that you do. There is no such thing as a person who is on the road to success that does not have a commitment to be excellent. What being excellent is about is just putting your heart in what you're doing, being totally committed, going the extra mile, being curious about what you're doing, growing your understanding, and always looking for ways to add value. And it's really interesting because the people that we admire in society, particularly as Black and African American people, we look at our people that have achieved great things. I'll throw out a few names: Oprah Winfrey's of the world, the Michael Jordan of the Jordans of the world, the LeBron James of the world, people like President Obama and other people that have achieved phenomenal things. And these people, when you look at them, they're excellent in just about everything they do, the way they carry themselves, the things that they say. You can tell that they have invested so much, not just in their craft, but in their personhood as well. And that is totally and completely essential. If you're going to be a person that really has an expanded influence, you got to be committed to being excellent, not just doing the things that are convenient, not doing things to the place where you're comfortable. You've got to do it to the place where it is a high standard for someone else to reach, and that's going to benefit other people because you've done it extraordinarily well. And then number 5, the commitment of giving to others. And as I say in the book, this is not just about money. I think successful people should give money. There's always going to be people in our world that have needs, people that need investment, and money is good for that. But the giving of time, the giving of efforts, the giving of energy. Whenever I go out in public, when I go to grocery stores, or sometimes just I go shopping with my wife, I usually look for young people between the ages of about 18 to 35, and I usually try to strike up a conversation with them. And sometimes they'll say a few things or other, and sometimes I'll just have a sense of something that they need, and I will say that to them. And so many times, usually a word of encouragement. I try to encourage or inspire persons. If they're doing something well, I will say something. There have been times in restaurants where I have actually had bad experiences, and instead of telling the manager about it, I just pull the wait person to the side and say, hey, listen, you know what? Let me give you some advice. Let me help you understand something. And many times people will receive that very well because they've not had many people to take that time to give them that. We have the ability to give people the things that are going to help them process life, understand life, have hope and a sense of confidence to move forward in a better way. And that is something that we should do as people who have been blessed, people who are successful, or even people that are trying to make it. When you give to others, that also comes back to you as well. I can't tell you the number of times I've had people walk up to me and say things to me at a precise moment when I needed the encouragement or I needed to hear what they had to say. It happens a lot. And I think that it's part of the reciprocal process of me taking the time to really be intentional about investing and giving to others. Black Man, A Prophecy of Hope for the Times Ahead can be purchased almost anywhere. Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads.com, bookshop.org. And I would love for you to communicate with me using info@gregldavis.com. My website is gregldavis.com. And I would certainly hope that you would look at and like my social media pages.